I am Deb Kadetsky, the SVP of Audience Development for She Knows Media.
I'm Samantha Ski, CEO for She Knows Media. Go.
Welcome, everybody. So you heard us talk yesterday a little bit about the She Knows Partner Network, and I'm here to really just convey the fact that everything that we do for our She Knows Media brands, we want to extend to our network of partners, whether you're a blogger, an influencer, any sort of content creator. And so we're really excited to present the opportunity to educate everyone here on how to grow and engage your audiences, engage with brands, monetize your content, all those good things. And not only will we provide the tools and best practices, but it's events like this that allow us to bring you direct access to the media and successful people in the industry to present their opinions of best practices on the platforms that they work on. So in the next hour, you're going to hear directly from the co-founder of Pinterest, and then we're going to have some lightning sessions to give you an SEO 101, and then we're going to move on to video YouTube best practices. So super excited, jam-packed, we're going to get right into it. SheKnowsMedia.com is the resource for you to go to. We've got a booth outside, so come and visit us, say hi. We'll teach you all about, I heard some clapping, thank you for that.
Thank you.
And just by signing up, even if you don't feel like you're ready for this, you're ready for this. We'll start a conversation with you. We want to engage with you so that you can then learn how to engage with your audience.
I'm going to introduce the person who's interviewing Evan Sharp, who's co-founder of Pinterest. And you guys should definitely lean into this because Cassidy Brown was asked last night at 9 p.m. because our good friend Jesse Draper could not make it. We asked Cassidy if she would be willing to interview the co-founder of Pinterest, and she was looked at us like blink, blink, I'm on my third martini, and then said, yes, I will. And so that's, I think, a lot of the women I met in the room who were like, what should I do to move myself forward? I would say that's what you do. I had 7 people over here who walked up to me and said yesterday, how do I get on your stage? And I was like, what you're doing. You're asking me, how do I get on your stage? And when I try to turn, you're like not moving. And so I think that's the way you get on the stage, is you take the opportunity and you unabashedly ask for it. So way to go, Cassidy. Cassidy is the co-founder of We Are the XX, a boutique production firm that builds and celebrates and propagates women's narratives. Her career has been about celebrating women's voices, and she and her partner are opening very shortly and very excitingly the XX House in Williamsburg. It's going to be a place for artists and creators like y'all to convene and work and bolster each other and make connections that will build their businesses. So look out for the XX House. You can go to the XX House and register so that you will be apprised very early when this secret launch occurs. So that's Cassidy. Realize she's had about 17 seconds to prepare and is still gonna crush it.
She is going to crush it, and she's going to crush it because Evan's going to talk about the most powerful visual search and discovery platform.
Yeah. You guys like Pinterest? It's like, yay!
Pinterest is amazing. I've been in lifestyle publishing for 20 years, and when Pinterest came about, I mean, it just blew Google away for some of the brands I've worked on. So I really hope you take away some really valuable insights and appreciate the words that are going to come out of his mouth.
Yes,
one of the few foxes in the hen house today. So let's start out by giving him a big round
we
of
got a
applause.
boy on stage. I think this is a big deal. Okay, let's be nice to him.
So just to get us started, can you raise your hand if you use Pinterest?
Holy crap.
It's pretty solid. And do a second round if you use Pinterest for your business. Okay, amazing. This is a good audience for us. So you launched Pinterest almost over 8 years ago. How has the platform evolved, and how has your vision evolved since launching?
Whew. Okay, we have what, 20 minutes? It's so funny, you know, I originally built Pinterest with my buddy Ben. We actually lived in New York City. I coded a lot of it on the Upper West Side at a Whole Foods coffee shop. And you know, in the beginning, we really built it because we wanted to use it. I was an architect at the time and was trying to save my creative inspiration and bookmark it. And so we built this thing and shipped it to our friends and didn't think it was going to be a company. And fast forward 8 years, you know, now we've got over 200 million users a month, and 100 billion ideas have been added by amazing creators and influencers. And it's used for so many things I can't even keep track.
So you guys don't consider yourself a social media platform. Can you share how you define it and why that's meaningful?
Who here uses Pinterest for kind of their own inspiration or own life? Yeah, thank you. It's interesting. I think a lot of the time, Pinterest kind of gets lumped in with social media, but to me, it's not at all social. It's very, very personal. We actually have a saying at Pinterest, be yourself, not your selfie, which I didn't come up with, but I like to try and live that every day. But I think that gets at the fact that on Pinterest, the mindset is very different than Facebook or Snapchat or Instagram. You know, when I see something on Pinterest, I see an image or a video, it's not me seeing what someone else is doing usually. It's usually me seeing something that I could be doing, and that feels really empowering, and it feels like a possibility, and that's just very different.
Speaking about Snapchat and Instagram, how have you over the years maintained a long-term vision and have avoided being reactionary to new platforms coming out, offering new features?
I don't think it's been that hard for us to stay true to what we want to do. You know, our mission is to help inspire your creativity every day and give you ideas that are hopefully relevant to your life and that help you feel a clearer sense of what you want to do. And I think that's a very different kind of tool than a tool to keep in touch with friends and family. So we think of it as our own space, and we have our own set of ideas that we want to build.
So there's a lot of influencers in the crowd, and influencers have played a big role in Pinterest as a platform. Can you share more about that?
Sure. Well, those of you who are influencers on Pinterest, or maybe who have a blog or add ideas that inspire our users, I just want to say thank you. You know, people say that Pinterest inspires them, but obviously we just show them ideas that really talented and creative creators are adding to their blog or to their website or to Pinterest. And so, you know, from the very beginning, we grew with a set of influencers, Joy Cho, Victoria Smith, some of you are probably here, who helped us kind of get the word out, who brought their communities onto Pinterest. Later on, through word of mouth, influencers are on Pinterest doing Pinterest challenges and trying things and sharing that with their audiences. And so we feel like we owe a really big debt to the community of creators and influencers. And today we're starting to build a lot more tools, hopefully, and products to make Pinterest more useful and a lot clearer for that group of people.
So how can influencers best use the platform to build their brand or monetize their content? Are there new features that they can be better allocating or using to do so?
Sure. So about 6 months ago, we built a whole new team. It's a pretty big team at Pinterest called the Creators Team. And we really tasked them with, for the first time in a few years, trying to understand what problems or difficulties or opportunities were facing all of the creators on Pinterest and how we can make it a lot clearer for them. And so since then, we've been shipping a number of relatively small things to start, but I think they'll have a big impact. So for example, I had like 10,000 pins saved and like 150 boards, and I'm pretty OCD. I used to be an architect. That was kind of annoying. And so one thing we heard a lot from creators was we want literally better ways to organize all of our stuff. So we ship board sections and pin reordering and a whole bunch of small things that we heard would make a big difference. Recently, we changed the profile for creators. So now it's not just about how many people follow you. It's also about showing and showcasing how many people are seeing your content, basically how many people are inspiring you, and hopefully that makes it easier to talk to brands and get sponsorship. And we also recently built a whole new kind of surface on Pinterest for users called the Following tab that's just for people or boards you follow. And that's been a really big request for a long time, and I think that's going to create a lot more eyeballs, a lot more traffic and audience for all of our talented creators. But we're just getting started. I think we're going to be shipping a lot more in the near future. And I would ask, if you have questions about how to build an audience or be a better creator, I've found that there are actually, because we haven't done a good job talking about Pinterest, there are a lot of myths or just kind of stories about what works, some of which are true, some of which aren't. But business.pinterest.com, as of like 2 months ago, is now the place to go to get the source of truth. And we'll be making that site more and more useful over time.
And there they can go and find out, or can we convince them here on why they should be using Pinterest to build their brand, why they should be focusing and investing in that platform maybe versus other platforms?
It's up to you. I'd say Pinterest is a place people are coming to get inspired and to actually often to get an idea, but then get offline and do something. And that's a little bit different than a lot of social media. And so if you're a creator who is all about helping people do things, if you're all about inspiring people, giving them ideas, helping them with how-tos, I think Pinterest is the place to do that. It's the place to go and not just kind of showcase what you're doing in your life, but also how you can inspire hundreds of millions of people ultimately to do the same.
Yeah. From a user perspective, I think what's interesting is your discovery tool, your search engine tool, it is less like, say, a typical search engine. The results that you're receiving is coming from a community, it's coming from people, it's not coming from an algorithm or a machine. Can you share how that has affected the brand and built community?
Yeah, it's a really beautiful thing. I don't know if this is evident to anybody who uses it, but everything on Pinterest was put there by a human being, sort of handpicked by somebody. And then we have pretty advanced recommendations in artificial intelligence and machine learning, but all of that is in service of helping you see ideas relevant to your life. So I don't know, to me, I work in technology, obviously, it's a technology company, but to me it feels like a very human technology company, and I'm really passionate about the fact that all of the technology we build sits on top of a bunch of ideas that people ultimately put there and really liked in the first place.
Yeah. So when you are thinking about scaling, or when you are scaling to new regions and new countries, how do you continue to cultivate that community and maintain the brand ethos?
It's been really interesting to learn how to do that. We've been focusing on growing around the world for the last few years, and we've built little offices, in Paris and London and Tokyo, and we have people who live there helping select people with great taste to help start the community. And then we have, really talented technologists, engineers, trying to make sure that all the recommendations you see and searches you see are in your language and are useful where you live. I went to Paris a couple years ago for the first time, and people were searching for recipes, and we were showing like American food. And I don't know if you've been to Paris, but that's kind of offensive if you're French. And so we've worked really hard to make it a lot better.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, so the large base of your audience is female, so you have to have a lot of data on us from all of our searching we've been doing. How has that, or how is it similar region by region? Have you noticed trends of, doesn't matter what country you're in, women still want these topics when they're searching, or has it been different depending on where you are?
It's interesting. First of all, women have always loved Pinterest, which I find really amazing. A little surprising at first because I built it for myself, and I'm obviously not a woman, but I'm very grateful. Internationally, when we started trying to make Pinterest useful in other countries, my first question was like, what's different about Japan than the US? Let's figure that out and make it really good. And I think what I've learned is, there's a lot more in common around the world than there is different. Everyone's looking for ideas to eat, what to wear, how to do their hair, how to decorate their home, how to throw a party for their kid. And the only difference is really taste and, and style and aesthetic. That varies by country. And the trends evolve really quickly, but everyone the fundamentals are very similar around the world.
With having a largely female audience, how does that reflect in how you hire for executive roles to make sure you're doing right by your audience?
This is a good question. I'm very passionate about this. It's a struggle. You all probably know this in Silicon Valley, to build an employee base that is aspirationally representative of the general population. But since we were very, very small, we've tried to be conscious and deliberate about doing that. And to be candid, we don't always succeed. One of our very first engineers was a woman named Tracy Chow, and she did this amazing thing very early on, where she made the data about the demographics of our engineering team public and put them in a spreadsheet in Google Drive, and then basically shamed Google and Facebook and a lot of the bigger companies into doing the same, and started this whole trend about revealing the data behind just the employee bases at these companies. And so I feel like we've tried to take a lead there over the years. When it comes to hiring executives, I spend a lot of time personally on that. I'm trying to hire a CMO right now. If you know anybody great, please let me know. I've probably met 65 people in the last year. But we have a few processes internally, so we instituted something called the Rooney Rule, which means that before we hire a senior leader, we have to meet with at least X number of women, X number of minorities, and make sure that we're being a little bit less biased in how we make that final decision. And then we also try and proactively network with women we think are great leaders, and not just women, but a lot of women, to make sure that when we do have a new role we're hiring for, we're not starting from scratch, because that can take too long. A lot of the time, I think we mess up this kind of thing. It's because we feel like we have to move so quickly, and we already know a great candidate who's maybe not the best candidate, but they're available, and we happen to know them because of our bias, and that leads to bad outcomes.
So focusing on the future, Pinterest is a visually based platform. How do you foresee visual first platforms like yourselves and others growing into the future? What is the trend in that?
I'm a visual person. I'm very bad at words, but I'm pretty good at visuals, and I'm really passionate about what's happening right now. Because historically, even today, when you see something on your phone, an image or a video, it's mostly a passive experience, right? You look at the image, and that's what it does, and that's great. But what's changing with technology is now you can actually search. You can see something in an image, and you're going to be able to understand what it is, how to make it, how to buy it. And anything you see is now going to be actionable. And I'm really excited about building that technology and making it simple and human and usable for people, and making it easier to kind of know what you want without having to try and talk about it or put it into words.
I think that's really interesting with Pinterest, like to find an amazing velvet chair that you want, and then you're like, how do I go and actually buy that versus just have it in my...
You might not believe this, but I recently pinned a velvet chair. It's actually true. No, but that's right. It's funny. Our number one user complaint, and this is hilarious because you think of business is I want to buy the things I see on Pinterest, and I can't figure out where they are or where they're on sale. And so we just announced a new thing called Shop the Look pins. Actually, if you guys are creators, you might want to check it out. It's pretty obvious. You can put dots on the content you're adding to Pinterest and mark them up with products. We have a deal with Shop Style Collective right now, but we'll be expanding it later. But that's a small example of us starting to explore that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Okay, so as we wind down on our time, what is the future of Pinterest? What does the next few years look like for you? What are you focused on?
It's a great question. So the number one priority for us as a business right now, outside of making enough money to pay for our employees, is creators, is making it easier to build an audience, publish content directly to Pinterest, and inspire people, and better understand how the ideas you're adding are impacting people's lives. And I'm just really excited to kind of create that clarity and build that beautiful relationship between our influencers and our community, and do that in a way that's encouraging and optimistic and empowering, hopefully, and see what that does for people and see what that does for the world.
Interesting. Well, I want to thank you for speaking with me, for being the sole male at this conference. I loved your answers in reference to your hiring practices, and I appreciate you taking on that question. I know it can be a difficult one. So, and I think it's just amazing, I think all of us founders here, to see somebody who's had a thriving business for 8 years, who's survived heavy competition, and you've maintained your vision, and you're still growing. So congratulations.
Thank you, Cassidy.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.